It is the ultimate punishment reserved for only the worst crimes committed in our state. In Arizona, the death penalty is the law of the land, but that sentence is imposed right now out of sight, except for a few select witnesses. Tonight, Troy Hayden takes us where television news crews have never gone before, inside Arizona's lethal injection chamber, to explain some of the mystery behind how the death penalty is carried out. Troy?
It's a very intense experience, John and Carrie, and I'm going to take you with us here. What we're about to see are the tools and processes used to take the lives of murderers who judges and juries have decided should die for their crimes. But these processes could change soon because of the problems states are having with getting these execution drugs. We'll have more on that in a minute. But let's begin with a walk through the gates of death row. George Pod 2, Browning Unit. The sign says condemned row, but it's better known as death row. All the men here committing crimes so terrible, the state has decided they need to die. Before we enter, we're required to put on stab vests.
That's right here.
And face shields.
Now we're wearing the face shields. Why do we put the face shields on here?
We require the protective equipment of our staff based on the fact that we've had inmates that will dart or they'll throw bodily fluids on our staff.
Before inmates are allowed out of their cells, they're strip searched.
I'll pat shirts, make sure that they don't have anything in there. Make sure that there's nothing in the waistbands. All right.
They're handcuffed, made to back out of their cells. Even their showers are individual cells themselves. Death row inmates are never allowed to be in contact with other inmates.
You just have to have an open eye, be very observant when working in death row.
Stephanie KRUSZKA has been a corrections officer here for 4 years.
They'll try to say inappropriate things, and that's where you have to draw the line. And that happens a lot, so that's where I have to draw the line, is when they start making inappropriate comments.
Do you feel safe on the job?
I do, especially with my coworkers.
And let's show you a death row cell here. 10 feet by 12 feet, concrete walls. You got a bunk. Over here you got a desk, toilet area, sink area. There is an outlet where they can plug in an appliance or a TV. They do have access to cable. And this exact cell here is where they bring condemned prisoners 30 days before they're actually executed. Why do they use this cell? Because it's equipped with these cameras, and they can watch them 24 hours a day.
It's in this cell where inmates eat their last meal, and that meal has to come from the prison kitchen. It's here where they decide who gets their belongings. And
we also want to know what he's going to do with the disposition of his body, whether or not we're going to, he'll have family pick that up or he'll be buried in our inmate cemetery itself.
In the hours before the execution, the condemned is moved from death row to the death house, this nondescript gray building. Its most striking feature, the smokestack that towers out of the top. That smokestack leads down to the state's gas chamber, which is still an option for some on death row.
This is the witness room. You can see back here on the back side of the witness room is the gas chamber that actually a couple of the condemned on death row are still eligible to use if they choose that method of execution. Over here you've got the lethal injection chamber, and it's a big glass partition here, and they've got black curtains that are closed when you first walk in.
And what I'm showing you are the holding cells where the condemned is brought to the day before the execution. So you can see the inside of a cell. There are 2 of them here.
There's a small area next to the holding cell where he can speak to his lawyers or clergy.
Up to 5 hours prior to the execution. If necessary, he could be provided a snack. If necessary, up to a few hours before the execution. If he wanted a sedative, that could also be provided. The inmate is escorted through the door from the holding cell, and then he is brought in to the execution chamber.
Department of Corrections Director Charles Ryan takes us into the lethal injection chamber, a place news crews have never been allowed in before.
So the witnesses will already be in the witness area, and they will observe on the monitors that the inmate is brought in, turned around, lifted, and placed on the table. Then authorization is given by me to proceed with injecting the other chemicals, and then we wait. I have a clear conscience in terms of carrying out this duty. And I do not have a professional problem in doing so.
Right now, Arizona is essentially out of the death penalty business, at least for the near future. Even though there are 4 men right now who have exhausted all their appeals and they're ready to be executed. A judge has put a hold on executions because of a lawsuit brought by inmates. And at the end of this month, all the death penalty drugs the state has will expire and they can't be used. Because state law requires executions to take place 35 days after a death warrant is issued, those drugs will never be used. And new drugs are very difficult to get. Now, Utah faced this same problem and passed a law to bring firing squads back if the state couldn't get death penalty drugs. So we conducted a very non-scientific Twitter poll, just threw it out there, and our followers overwhelmingly said they would choose to do the same thing here in Arizona. Our Attorney General, Mark Brnovich, said here on Fox 10, maybe we should explore alternative execution methods. And other high-ranking Arizona leaders I talked to said the same thing. But any change would have to go through a vote of the people.